All right, we are here with the founding sisters of Psi Theta Epsilon at St. Leo College, not St. Leo University. St. Leo University is something else really now. The college is kind of gone. That had a history that was here and now is kind of gone. But anyway, just say your names then and now, like the way they were then and the way they were now.
My name is Cindy Miller, and my new last name is Eigenman. And I was in school back in '74 or '5, and graduated in '80.
My name is Barb Kobolars. That's what it was then. Now it's Zabransky. And I was at St. Leo from '75 and I graduated in '79.
And I'm Peter Smith. I went to start at St. Leo in January of 1992 and graduated in May of 1995. And I was the Psi Theta Epsilon big brother. I actually became one in October 1994, but that's kind of not really, that doesn't really, I actually was involved a lot earlier than that. I was involved from like '92 forward and became increasingly more involved, and my official Big Brother night didn't come until October 1994. But I had been very involved even before that, much involved. So
That's interesting, because we never had big brothers.
No, we didn't have big brothers.
they didn't have big brothers. Did you ever even think that you would have big brothers? Because I'm not the only one. There was big brothers before me.
Not the time that we were there, because I knew national sororities and frats at other bigger schools, like state schools, had little sisters and little brothers, as they called them.
Yeah.
But
Never at our
no,
school.
because it was all local. We weren't national. Nobody, yet.
It's funny that you should say that, because the opposite was true. The nationals weren't supposed to have big brothers. Only the locals could really officially have them, because the locals could do anything they wanted. Really, they could make their own rules and sail their own ship. They had no anybody to abide by.
Well, we were an organization for a long time before we ever became a sorority. The sororities and fraternities that were on campus, they would, the sorority would group with a different fraternity, and they would do things together, and they each had their own little group.
Right, so in a
But
way
we
they
didn't
had
really
favorites,
group with
but-
anybody.
No.
They were not real. It's not so much the fraternities weren't accepting, but the sororities were not accepting of us at all.
Yeah, I understand that. So how exactly did you start? Like, I'm always curious to know that. See, I realized by the time I got into the thing, I realized 20 years had passed, and they really didn't know much more than they were founded on September 15th, 1975, and their flowers a daisy and whatever, and they had, and the colors and things like that. And I knew they did traditions, and I think they thought they dated back to that point in time, but even listening to you, I can tell that a lot of things aren't the way they were. I went ahead of myself a little bit. I'm supposed to read you something, and we're supposed to do a few things. We went ahead of ourselves.
That's okay. Go back.
First of all, on behalf of me, like I said, we started the history page. That's how we found you. I started the Facebook history page with my friends Justine Massey and Emily St. Pierre Tolbert and Heather Clark Linero. They're my friends that I deal with when I talk about. When I wanted to start the history page, that's who I did it with. It was my idea. I do Seaside Heights history here in Seaside Heights, where I live. We work on projects where we did the whole expanse of 100 years, and we're still working on it. Psi Theta Epsilon was far easier to do, but we decided that we needed to introduce you. And please, it's a song, but I'm not going to sing it to you because it's supposed to be sung in a group. But our motto is give a cheer to the girls who drink the beer. You're the girls of Psi Theta Epsilon. You are brave, you are bold, for the liquor you can hold. You're the girls of Psi Theta Epsilon.
Oh my, for the
For
liquor
a
you
tear
can hold.
here for the girls who drink the beer. If a sister should appear, say, lady, have a beer, and you'll drink one one more till you tumble to the floor. You're the girls of Psi Theta Epsilon. Yes, that's right.
We have, so we didn't have that.
That is the song. And there's another one here, and it has to be cleaned up a little bit because the language of it is not what we would have on our clean internet.
In public.
Yeah, that we have. But here goes. Here's to our founding sisters, founding sisters, founding sisters. Here's to our founding sisters who are with us tonight. So drink, and there would be an explicative. Drink, 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 and the sisters at home would know the words, and I'll tell them to you after. But it's explicative. But anyway, so that's one of the that's what is sung to the new pledges when they get in, and that's what's sung to the big brothers when they get in. I remember that explicitly. Beer, when a big brother gets in, I can tell you how that happens for sure. They pour beer over your head, and they throw you a shirt, and they sing to you. They sing to you those songs. Yeah, it's different than when a pledge gets in. Over the years, I know kind of how a pledge gets in by different girls having told me, but we don't wish to discuss every single detail.
No.
But
We're
not going to go in that way. But also, I wanted to tell you that the mayor of Seaside Heights wanted to say a few words, and this is a proclamation from the mayor of Seaside Heights because I told him you were coming, and this kind of explains it. It says, whereas it has come to the attention of the borough of Seaside Heights that the founding sisters of the Psi Theta Epsilon sorority of St. Leo College are coming to be interviewed about their group's history in Seaside Heights, and whereas Psi Theta Epsilon is well known to the borough of Seaside Heights because of longtime employee and citizen Peter James Smith, me, a big brother, and often mentions his personal policies based on his membership in Psi Theta Epsilon, and therefore be it proclaimed by the borough of Seaside Heights, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, to the founding sisters of Psi Theta Epsilon, all the people around them, they say, can they be that close? Just let us say for the record, they're giving love in a family dose. Mayor William Akers, and that goes to our next tradition, and this is this song predates 1975, so I can't imagine how it could be. This is the song that is played when the pledges get in. I can tell you that much. Okay. And it is a very emotional song, and we have to play it because we have to play it. It is like protocol. No. Here you go. We are family. You like this song? This became the official anthem. And
I think we do have it somewhere written in wherever, like later. That's not the first year.
Yeah, not at the beginning.
Well, they took it and ran with it.
That's what I'm trying to remember. Yeah.
If it's written down in some book somewhere, somebody went with it and went with it.
We probably did at a later point, but at the very beginning we didn't.
No, not in the beginning.
When this song is played amongst the sisters of my day, the emotions that are expressed are great. And this is the reason why. It's because this song is played right when the pledges get their shirts, right when they transform from pledge to sister.
Well, we didn't have a lot of that when we first started, because when we first started, we were more of an organization. And what happened at that point was just a group of us got together. We were not wanting to be.
We also had to get into Panamland.
Yeah.
And that took time.
A long time.
So
they were not wanting us
we got in.
to be a sorority. We went through a lot to be a sorority. And we didn't want to join any of the other sororities because they didn't.
Well, there was only three.
There was only three, but it wasn't really what we wanted to do as individuals. You know, not to knock anything that they do. We had friends in the other sororities, but we wanted to be different. We wanted to be more service oriented. We wanted to be a group that went out into the community and were known for that and did things.
Yeah.
And so our group that stuck together, we just really had a hard time. We did, because I would go to Panhellenic meetings and try to get the paperwork going and be a part of the Greek group, and they were adamant, no. And it was stressful. It really was. So we were an organization for such a long time, and
then we got Morris, our advisor. Finally, not the first year, I think it was like the third year.
Correct. We were an organization for a while.
Yeah.
And it was fine because it was the same group of girls.
And we were still able to participate, like at homecoming, we did
Correct.
floats, and we did one, we participated.
We did them as organization though, not as a Greek group.
No, right.
And when we finally did become a Greek group, it was great, and we were excited, and then we were looked at a little differently, I think, because we stuck together for so long and we had put so much effort into it. I think they thought maybe by not allowing us in that we would fizzle and not really be anything, but we never did. And it was because we had started together so early on, we stuck through all the way until we finally got in, and it was exciting for us, and we were a service group, and we did go out in the community and we did things for the churches and the poor and the boys' village and the schools, and so it was good. We enjoyed that. It was rough, though, I have to say. We had a sister, and I miss her so much, Mary Steiner Duncan, and she was into the legal parts of things. So she was the one that helped us write our bylaws and, fill out she was our paperwork queen. And she did a lot of it. We did a lot of collaborating together with her on, and she was a part of our group and our sorority forever. And of course, I probably was the most in touch with her, except Sue. I think Sue Barton was. And,
Sue Barton,
we kept in touch with her, and she died a couple of years ago. She had cancer, and but she was really instrumental in all of our paperwork and getting things done and really helping us to become, what we needed to be. So we all as a group, though, always sat down together and did all our discussions. We held meetings, and we voted on everything that we wanted, and people put in ideas, and that's how we came with the flower and the song and the motto and things like that.
What was your song? It obviously wasn't
Well,
family.
We didn't really pick a certain one. We were more, I don't know, at the beginning in an organization, you don't have any of this.
No.
And so we just talked about things. We didn't really...
Like I said, like the third year, I remember that song we kind of
played a lot for us.
Right.
Because, and it had a lot to do with places we hung out to and went to. So there was a place in Tampa we used to go to called Mark Twain's. And the OP. And they were, disco clubs back in our day. And so we would go there, and that was a lot of the music that played, and when we would be together and hear it, and so we didn't really have one specific, that we would per se write down and say this is it. We hung out a lot together, but we also had our own lives and did a lot independently. It was good. I mean, a lot of our girls too, they really had other girls in other sororities too that they did hang out with and chum with and do, but when we got together for specifics and for service work and meetings and things we needed to do on campus and whatever, everybody was a united front. So it's probably a lot different in your era and after our era than it was in our era. We were the ones that were starting out, and we were like the blind leading the blind, because none of us in our organization had ever done anything like that. And I'm kind of a ballsy person, really. And I will be the person that says, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this and I don't care. And so I was kind of the person that went to the meetings with Panhellenic and went to the advisors and you know, and it didn't bother me. I mean, sometimes it was mean and
because you had other
hurtful.
girls, like a couple, maybe 2, 3 other girls.
It was
from
the
other
presidents
sororities.
of the sororities and the VPs. It was
And they
their
would, like, look down on
advisors.
you.
It was also the fraternity presidents and their VPs. It was the a lot of the upper echelon campus that were in these meetings and would, you know, just grill you about, you know, well, why do you want to do this? Well, why are you unhappy with, you know, the other Greek organizations, and why don't you want to become a
They
part
wanted
of that?
a reason
And-
why to have another
Correct.
Greek sorority or frat for that matter, because there's such a small school number. That was I remember that was one of the things they kept
That was
stressing.
one of
Oh,
their
we're too
points.
small, and it's like, you know,
Right.
It was like, no, we're going to
we
do
don't
this,
need to
you know?
add another one because our
That was
school.
the big thing.
Yeah.
It was the size of the school. You know, it was like, yeah.
And they did that for years, right?
Years. Well, we had to go every year, I think,
To
to
you did.
Panhellenic.
You had to
You
in
know,
order
it was
to
like every year they'd hold this
become
big
Greek,
meeting,
yes.
and we would put in the paperwork again.
Right.
We would go again. You know, we would do all of that, only to be
And
denied.
you had to prove yourself to Panhellenic. You had to show them what you've done. Like I said, you
What
write down
service,
right,
yes.
whatever community service for you. You wrote
Mary
it all
kept
down,
a log.
You know,
She did
how
all
many
that.
hours and all that. So it was, you know.
But they eventually did it.
They
Yeah.
eventually
What,
did
what
do
do you
it.
think was the thing that changed their mind?
I think because we stuck together as a group.
And they saw what we were doing. I think that was
Right.
They saw
We proved
how
ourselves.
we were doing it and what we were doing. We're like,
I think
okay,
that had
you know,
a lot
We had a
to
good
do.
philanthropy, so that was. I think that was a big part of it, really.
Yeah.
That was most of it.
And we were together. I mean, we
And then-
didn't just
right.
disband, and
No.
you know, we kept more people coming, and you know,
that was the other key, yes.
we had more girls that wanted to be part of what we were and not of anybody else. And so I think a lot of that, as well as the fact that the upper echelon campus saw us as, you know, they've really done a good job. They've really put forth that effort. They've, you know, gotten out there, and they are known in the community. And because we did a lot of work with St. Anne,
Yeah, we did.
and
St.
so I
Anne's
think
great.
that had a lot to
Well,
do with
mostly
it.
The school, St. Anthony's.
Yes.
The Catholic.
Yeah.
And
I
we
remember,
did.
of
We
course.
also went
That,
to.
none of that ever changed. That people at the college changed, but the community I
Right.
don't think ever changed in a long time.
Right.
So I remember all
And
that,
Montessori, we did things with too across the
That used to
street.
be next to Villa.
Yeah. Villa,
Yeah.
I remember.
The
I think-
Montessori school was right there.
yeah, that had changed. Villa was
Yeah.
still there when I was there.
Villa still, yeah, it is.
So I think that in itself said to them, okay, we will allow it, and it was a really big
Well, we
thing.
proved ourselves.
We did.
And like more girls wanted to join, and they
Right.
saw that too. Like, okay, like in other words, if we didn't have that many other people interested in joining, we probably wouldn't have went Greek.
Correct.
But we did. We had a lot
Yeah,
of
we
girls,
had
and
a
we
lot
saw
of
that. You know,
girls.
I think we had to write up, like even like not a like sort of like a petition of. But yes, we have 100 girls. It wasn't 100 girls, but whatever it was, 50 girls that wanted to join our organization.
Correct.
So
And when you have an organization, it's not really a pledging. You don't really do that. It's an organization, and you sit down with a group of girls and you talk to them and you explain to them what you do and who you are and why you are. And, you know, and there were people that decided no, and then there were people that decided, yeah, I really want to be part of that. And they were all nice girls, you know, or women at that point. We were, you know, we were all wanting the same thing, you know, to be part of a service-oriented group. That was our big thing, is we wanted to do service for others. It's the giving back, you know.
I know that service the service motto always stayed in the mantra, like it always was, you know, part of the
it's like the core, really.
the
of
core
It was
of,
the core of our group.
but it lost its focus. I can tell you that. And by my day, they did things.
Right.
They adopted the highway. I remember they cleaned the highway, and they did stuff, but it was mostly partying and.
And see, we weren't really all about that. I mean, we'd go out as groups and, we'd go to the keg parties. I'm not going to say we sat in our dorms and we never had a drink, because we did.
I worked at the bar, too.
Yeah, and she worked at the Headliner. So, we did go out and we did have our good times, and, we went to all of the functions and stuff, but drinking was not really our main focus of being together. As it is for some, but it wasn't for our group. And so and we had a lot of them that went and did other things and whatever, but when it came to who we were very focused on what we needed to do to give back. And that was important. And I think even in today, it's important. I think more people need to learn about giving back and, being more service oriented in your community, and such as you are.
I am service-oriented in my community. Like I said, like the mayor said, I hold my Psi Theta Epsilon values. I take them into my adult life, you know what I'm saying? And it's very easy because Heather Clark, like I said, is a very close friend of mine. I stay in touch with Justine and Emily, the girls I was telling you about, and others, and I remember we don't beg anybody. I remember that was our thing. We don't do that. Our standards are very high. We don't take second best. And I've just adopted those mottos into my adult life, and I always talk about it. I always talk about my St. Leo days. I'm like the high school teacher. I'm sorry that you said that you had that always talked about Leoland and the good old days.
We loved our experience was very different than yours, though.
Yeah.
We lived in a community at the college to where there was a hill. Yeah. The girls were always on the top of the hill, and our dorms were run by the nuns.
Was that Marmion and Snyder?
Marmion, Snyder, and Priory.
Yeah.
Girls lived in Priory, and only the seniors could live in Villa. So it was all girls, and we had what was her name again? I always ask you this. Mrs. Unger was our lady at the desk,
front desk.
Yeah.
And we called her our mother because she was the one that if a gentleman came to your dorm, she was the actual person who would call the floor and say, "You have a visitor at the front desk." And then we would go down and we had to sign them in. They had to be signed in and they had to be out by a certain time. And then when you went down and up the hill to the other side of campus, it was all guys and all the guy dorms. And God forbid you were ever caught over there after a certain point or during that certain point. Yes, the truth was not to get caught.
It was far different when I was here. It was co-ed on both sides.
Well, it wasn't. No, so it was, and it was run by the nuns, and they were very strict about things. And
hardly any nuns in my day.
Oh wow!
Well, there was a few.
In the top floor,
there wasn't any that lived in my dorm.
Yeah. No,
the
top floor Priory
they
was
were very
all of
elderly. By my time.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were. We were
well,
there too.
not by ours, no, because we had a lot of them on campus.
A couple, but
Sister Mary,
I remember going in Priory.
Sister Mary Claire was in.
That's different. She was she was a women's residential life for women, director of women's residential life.
But then we had the one that ran the cafeteria. We called her the Flying Nun. She drove on a golf cart.
You mean Sister Imelda?
I don't think that was.
That was Mary Ann or.
That's really the only nun that really we interacted with. The one that ran the cafeteria.
She was a big woman.
Well,
this
the
is
one that that was, I think her name was Mary Ann, and she had the golf cart.
Yes. And she used to fly through campus because they still wore the full habits. But most of them were elderly, and most of them did live on the top floor of the Priory. And they didn't come down much. No, they went out on outings and did that. Then you had the brothers over on the other side of campus. They were out and about a lot.
Yeah. We never saw anybody. Yeah.
Really?
We never saw anybody.
Oh, wow.
They used to be out in the grotto there, which was in front of the church.
It had changed that much.
Drastically.
Yeah.
They used to be out on campus. We would say hi to them. Yeah. We would see them.
Not
a lot,
but
same
few,
Yes, and they would work around the Abbey and stuff, and you would see them. It was open. You could see, it wasn't a hidden situation. But school was very different in our time. It was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed it. Oh my God, it was so much fun. It was just so different from what you had and what they have now.
They don't have any fun now, from what it sounds like. It's the opposite of fun.
Can I say it's a real college?
I don't know. It
was a good school.
Like
it was just different. It was a different time.
It was a different time.
You know, we were all coming off of being, well, I was like in high school, like a hippie. You know.
I went there because it was a Catholic college, and we were Catholic. So
it was very easy to convince my mother to let me go there because you opened up the thing, and it was all nuns and
correct.
Right.
And it looked like a fine Catholic school, but I knew the opposite was true because I had gone to St. Leo to visit my friend,
and it was
my
wild.
friend from Seaside, Kim Rowley Samarelli, who lives here still, well, close. She had gone to St. Leo, and I went to visit her there, and we went to parties and things.
Sure.
And I knew.
Oh, they had major parties.
Yeah, and I think it was the Psi Theta Epsilon party that we went to.
See, we never sponsored parties, but
Well,
the fraternities
That is all
realistically.
we did was sponsor parties.
Okay, realistically, our sororities on campus did not really sponsor parties.
because you
It
didn't
was
have, like,
because
sorority
we
houses.
lived on campus.
They
It
all-
was the
everybody did, pretty
fraternities
much.
that lived off of campus. Behind the headliner where it was lived,
Omega.
yeah, Omega.
Omega was going
In a
almost
house.
to the corner there of the Magic Mart, and well, now there was a bank
Headed
there, too.
towards Ralph's.
Yeah.
They had a
Right.
house. There was a trailer park that
Orange
Phi
Valley.
Theta Chi,
Phi Theta Chi, and then out
they had
through San Ann and down
a
the
windy
country road was KA property.
KA
Kappa
property.
Alpha.
They had 2 trailers out there,
Yeah.
and that's where they had the big beer bangs. And then where did Lambda live?
No, Lambda
No,
didn't
they
have-
all were
didn't
on
have-
campus,
no, yeah,
pretty
right.
much. So we only really had 3 fraternities that had off-campus housing. There just aren't apartments or buildings
Not at
or,
the time,
you
I know.
know.
Well, there were in my day. There must
Wow.
have been a lot of development that happened.
There,
'cause
sure.
Because a
A
lot
lot of the sisters had off-campus places, and some of them were fairly big. I remember we had a farm at one point in time. A sister, Sarah Canavan Clark, her name is now. She rented a big place, and you could have major parties out there because there was no one to hear us. It was a farmhouse on this big property, and that was, I think, like one of the coolest places. And that was in the Psi Theta portfolio for a lot of years, I think.
The only party off campus we had was at Dr. Ferris's house. Remember when we went
Yeah,
to
but
that?
that was different. I know a couple of girls that were in a different sorority lived out at Lake Iola.
Lake Iola was a Psi Theta property when I first
Oh, that's-
became onto the.
It was kind of a ride, but yeah.
Yeah, most people lived on campus in
Well,
our
there wasn't
era.
that much really to rent around.
No.
I mean,
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
like the
yeah.
trailer parks. And
Right. And if you wanted
wasn't
to
a
go
lot.
out and you wanted to do anything, like Barb said, there was the headliner right on the corner, and that was just wine and beer.
Ralph's.
Or we went into San Ann to the pizza place,
And they had
or
beer
we
and
went
wine.
to Ralph's. That was
those
it.
things were closed.
By my day,
Oh,
I think
well, the
that
headliner burned.
the drinking age increased. I think that
That had
decreased
Correct, yeah.
the amount of establishments.
18 when you started.
Yeah.
And it was
We went into
18.
Tampa a lot.
Oh yeah, well, because the clubs were there. There was
Right.
really nothing out, even in Zephyr Hills or in Dade City at that time.
And
you
this
could
will
go
date
to.
us. I will date us.
Sure.
I have to date us. We used to like to clothes shop, and they had a couple of really nice clothing stores in Dade City. And they had a restaurant there that we would take our families to when they'd come called the Edwinola. And it was all family style table,
remember, yeah.
It was lovely.
Oh,
And when we went into Dade City, there were 2 stores, one on the main street and then take a left and one over here more. And they were like your better dress shops or clothing stores or whatever. But Dade City was still very
Tiny.
it was very small, and they were not fans of African Americans.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And the African Americans still had to enter from the back in the stores.
Because we had a lot
And
of
they're-
Islanders, probably when you were there too.
And they would not allow them to go in the front of the stores. They had to enter in the back of the stores. So not a lot of people went into Dade City to shop. We did. And years later, I actually met one of our college friends who worked in Dade City and whatever, but it was still very behind the times, you know, and you had to really be careful where you went. Our school, we did service projects at the schools and stuff, but you had to be really careful when you went there because it was very backwards still. You know, they were not fans of African Americans, and
let alone if they were going to the college. So that was the other factor, because they,
correct.
you know, they just figured all these
Yep.
African Americans are getting a secondary education.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
It was very different.
I mean, Dade
So-
City still had a lot of backwards people. Basically.
Very, very, very.
Well, I remember it
Backwoods.
being a backwards kind of place, but I don't remember anything like that.
No. And actually, during our college years, more towards the end, it changed. But at the very beginning, the signs were on the door, Blacks enter from the back. And we were like, you know, we didn't grow up in that kind of a high school or community. So when we saw that, we were like, are you kidding? You know, because no place I ever went during my high school years, or her as well, did we ever find any of that. So this was really a very segregated town.
We shopped in the Walmart, which was built on a, probably not there in your day, built in like along the highway.
301?
Down
301.
there. So we didn't really go into the downtown
Into the
too much.
town.
Only to the pharmacy did we go
I remember
sometimes.
that place.
But then I started going to the pharmacy at Walmart because it was so much closer and so much cheaper. You
We
know,
didn't have Walmart. No Walmart, no Kmart.
it was the first
no
Walmart I
anything.
ever saw in my life. I had never seen a Walmart before. They certainly didn't have Walmart here. So this is what ended up happening because I studied all the years. So you guys left in 1980, 79, 80 era.
Correct.
Yeah. 1980, Psi Theta Epsilon won Outstanding Sorority. Were you there then? Yeah.
You were.
So that
Yes.
was a big accomplishment. You must have been very proud
Yes,
then.
very.
And then 4 years later, they won it again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 1984. So they, it really achieved from being nothing to having to struggle so hard, really achieved the height of
To be an awesome organization, yeah.
St. Leo's status and popularity twice in a decade is really, really
Twice in 5 years,
impressive.
really.
But what they did from that point forward was they got away from their service-oriented roots, and it became the beautiful girls sorority and the partying sorority.
Unusual.
And
Wow.
I mean, that was like,
Yes.
I mean, they usurped them in every way, and they also became the hazing girls sorority.
Oh,
boy.
my.
Very much so, very, very much so. Probably the most feared group around or amongst them. You know what I'm saying? And I can't.
And that's sad to know that, because that
And
was
talk
not
about
even
taking-
what
I
we
know,
were about at
but
all.
things change, you know.
Yeah, things must have drastically changed because
Horrifically.
by my day, it definitely there was a strict. You know, it was tough. Wasn't watered down. You know, there was strict. Yeah, and it was not allowed at all. It was not allowed, but it got away anyway. And most presumed that those things came down right down to the beginning days, but apparently not.
Wow.
I mean,
Because that really wasn't us. You know, we wanted
I mean,
everybody,
we did
no
take
matter
pledges.
what. We
And
took
we
pledges.
did have pledging,
Yeah.
but not
Never
to the
hazing.
extreme, right?
Never hazing. Never anything
We
that
did
would hurt
fun
the
stuff
girls.
that, you know,
It
would-
was fun.
Kind of, they wouldn't
Scary
anticipate it,
fun,
but, you know, it was-
yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
scary
well, I mean,
fun.
I can't reveal
We can't either.
No.
the exact details. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we
And of
don't
course, I wasn't there, so I really can't say
Right.
one way or the other. I've only heard tell, but you know, it definitely was. You know,
That's
Oh,
sad.
a tough
Yeah, it really took a turn for, I guess, the worse in a way.
Right.
And it was also a lot of partying. That's why they needed big brothers. They needed someone to carry the kegs. They needed bouncers at their parties. They needed.
I needed some of the frats to carry me out sometimes, but
Yeah, they needed protectors because they were, you know,
Very different.
They were they partied a lot, and you could tell. But I know you brought yearbooks and our yearbooks are online, but you could tell by the pictures. It goes from, a service.
Not in ours, though.
Yeah, it goes from service pictures to pictures of them partying.
Wow.
And
I'll have to
pictures.
check that out.
Yeah. It's definitely on the website. Yeah, and you can see the change. And big hair becomes the norm. I noticed that. I guess the times
I
changed.
remember those mid to late '80s, the big hit.
Yeah. And you can just see them, with their things of beer and
Big hair.
and their big hair. And that was like 5 years preceding when I came to town. And when I came to town, it was exactly like I described. And
That's so bizarre. We were so different.
I guess
we were very caring and very loving, and we gave awards to our girls, and just very different. Just so different.
Mine, and then I was the sorority clown.
She was the sorority clown. Quite comical she is.
I don't know if he's got that. Yes.
yeah, it just
think
was
that was
not
just an
like
acknowledgement of being
it.
a
Just was
sorority,
not
right?
like that.
Yeah, charter member. That's us.
And I don't know how it was like this, but things had gotten like strict on paper. They said, "Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that."
The sorority, their paper, like they
Well,
wrote up. Or
no,
are you talking about
that the
schools? Okay.
the school's
Okay.
rules were this and the school's rules were that.
But they got away
But
with
nobody ever followed them, and
No,
nobody
it's
ever
not
told
forced.
them.
See, in our time it was different because when we did get into Panhellenic, we were still in a grace period per se.
Yeah.
So we had
Probation,
we had to provide what our pledging would be like,
Right.
what we would do,
All our bylaws and-
everything, all our paperwork. Mary
Right.
had to put through and once again submit. And the college was very sticky about how you treated your pledges and what you did. There really wasn't. There was a lot of fun, I think, on a lot of the sorority and fraternity parts. I don't think it wasn't abusive or hazing or.
No,
It really wasn't.
Yeah, there was
Not of
hazing,
the
'cause
things,
I had
but-
boyfriends that were in that pledging friend.
But not like you hear about today.
No, different kind.
It
It was
was
hazing, but different.
a different.
Not abusing. I wouldn't say abusing.
No.
Just there was definitely hazing. Definitely.
Well,
That's
I don't think it
it's
was as
always
bad
been-
as the boys.
Correct. No, I'm talking about like the boys. The girls.
Yeah, the girls now.
They had it. Yes, they did, but not.
Yeah, but
Not
there
to
was
the
other girl
degree.
groups that did similar things. I can't say that
Yeah.
there weren't, and there was others that did nothing. So
We weren't all about that. We never really were, and we were never the type of group that you had to look a certain way or be a certain person,
Right.
or it was never that way. That just wasn't
And
who
we wouldn't
we
belittle
were.
either. That like a lot
No.
of sororities I know from my daughters.
Yes.
They really.
They were belittling, and you had to be
Yeah.
of a certain caliber and so forth, and we just weren't about that.
it's the opposite of what it became.
Wow, that's
Yes.
sad. It is
But
sad.
and then in a very different way, they were very open as far as multicultural. We
we were that.
We had a lot
yes,
of
yes,
items.
Yeah.
yeah, we were very open as far as that. Very, I just think a very accepting sort of group in those sorts of ways, but very strict in the standards that they had. You know what I'm saying? And they didn't care if anybody quit. You quit, you're a loser. Get out of here. You know what I'm saying? That was the
We had
attitude.
Some girls that did. I remember quit pledging. There
Yeah.
was too much.
But our pledging wasn't
But we
horrific.
didn't just like we weren't mean or just cut them off if we saw them. I would say hi to them, and they would.
Right.
They were.
We never
The feeling was
demeaned
mutual.
or-
They wouldn't. They just weren't into the pledging part.
Correct.
And a lot of people aren't into
Aren't.
that. They want to be in
In a group, but they
right.
don't want to have to go through the pledging aspect.
And that's how it is though with Greeks, whether it's frat or sorority.
Right.
So.
Right.
It was different, and I was going to tell you how I got into it. Yeah, I went to. It was very interesting. I went to St. Leo. I didn't know anybody at all, and I really didn't like it too much. And I was going to leave, and then I decided to go back for a second year for some reason, and I ended up in a class with a bunch of Psi Theta girls in it, and one of them was Heather Clark. And she had asked me to help her with her homework. Would I come over to Henderson Hall, which was a boys' dorm in your day, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's where most of the sophomore.
Everything on that side was boys.
Yeah, that's where most of the sophomore Psi Theta girls were living, and I ended up helping her with her English paper, and then also helping a whole bunch of other girls. And I got to be friendly with them, and they invited me to their barbecue bash. And I was like a special guest, and they were. It was an easy gig to get because nobody else wanted to do it. But I ended up standing at the gate and collecting the $10 per car. So I became like an invaluable asset to them that night, and I guess it just kind of stuck.
Were these the girls living at Lake Iola?
It was at Lake Iola, yeah, it was at Lake Iola, and I definitely did that service for them that night, and then did other things later on, and I sort of stuck around during the next time they had a pledge class, and I sort of was hanging around with Heather a lot and with a lot of the sophomore girls, and it was their first pledge class they had ever had, and it was very exciting for them, and I sort of was there along with them while they were going through the motions of having their first pledge class, and it was very interesting, and I was there all the time with them while they were talking about it, and I was very much involved. You can't, like, I was in the room with all 10 of them, and they're talking about.
So you knew.
So I knew everything, you know. And so suddenly I knew everything, and there was
an honorary member, basically.
Kinda, yeah, and that created a lot of jealousy with some of the older girls that I didn't know. Like, how does he know so much? Why is he always around?
Right.
You know. So there was like an anti-Peter like group.
Campaign going
Yeah, sort of like. So I had to wait a long time till I was officially like made a big brother. It wasn't until I was a senior, but I had been involved for such a long time and knew so much, and was way more active.
You were in.
And then when I graduated, I never paid attention. Like after I graduated, I was it. Like I was done with it. Like I never. Like it existed for like 8 more years, and I never went back or ever nothing. But it wasn't until I was older and I thought about all that it had meant to me, and I thought about writing the history down and whatever, and I did. And that's how I started the page, and I'm glad I found you nice ladies.
A lot of us kept in touch.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the charters, and some we don't. We did know, and then all of a sudden it was like a vanish, and we don't know. And
because if they got married and they're
Right.
not using their even former name, and within their
correct.
name, then you don't
But
know.
a lot of us did keep in touch, and we still do. So.
I think my age bracket is a lot different because we have Facebook, and we always have had
We
it.
have Facebook.
No, he means.
I have Facebook.
Yeah, I know.
No, but I know what he's saying, right?
Yes,
But if they're not
the social
using
media
their
was
maiden
different.
names if they're married.
Yeah.
Correct.
Almost everybody I know does. Like I said, I pretty much know everybody like 4 years above me and 4 years below me in college that was in Psi Theta because they're on that page.
Oh, see, a lot of ours, we don't know where they are. We did at one
did a
point,
couple of them,
Greta
and then-
being one of them.
Puppy.
And and of course Mary's gone now. We used to talk. She didn't live
Pam,
far.
I always do Pam because Pam and I kept Pam Stashevsko, but
Right. There's just
Well,
so
we were
many of
roommates,
them
too,
that,
after college.
you know, we lost touch with. Some of them we still kept in touch with, but you know, it was a different social media time.
Yeah. So we can see how much times changed over the 40 years. It's interesting to see. It's very it's extremely interesting, and I'm glad we had the chance
It
to
is,
talk.
and I'm so glad.
You know, nobody else did it. Nobody else took the time to videotape the founders versus and I know that nothing changed between my graduation and the time the sorority ended, because I know the girls and how they were educated, and it was a real small thing between the time I graduated and the time it ended. It really was, there wasn't a lot of sisters. It was maybe like 10 sisters, and they really stuck close, and I know their history. They kind of told me, and it never really changed. They stuck to the way that we had it. So
Interesting.
interesting. But anyway, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No
We're so
problem.
glad.
I got a second beer to work on.
All right. All right, beautiful.